Week 10 of the fantasy football season. The top 20 quarterbacks. I'm ranking this week number 1, Lamar Jackson. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, another MVP type year it's been for him. This week, a great matchup versus Cincinnati Bengals. Going back weeks ago, he threw for 5 touchdowns for Cincinnati. And their secondary can't stop anyone all season long. So this week, I believe Lamar will go out there, have another big performance, put up a lot of fantasy points. And he's locked in with Zay Flowers. Deontay Johnson added to the offense as well last week. And just a lot of good weapons. Number 2, Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. So this week, a great matchup at the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense can't stop anyone. And even with Micah Parsons most likely returning to the lineup, I don't think it makes much of a difference because this Philadelphia Eagle team, they're making big plays. They're getting in the end zone now. And Saquon Barkley, he's just added another dimension to this offense this season where it opens up the passing game and it's even opened up the running lanes here for Jalen Hurts. Number 3, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. So Josh Allen, another great season for this Bill team. I know Keon Coleman most likely out a few weeks with the injury, but you still got Cooper possibly returning and Khalil Shakir. And this week it's a good matchup at the Indianapolis Colts. We saw last week Sam Darnold go out there and throw for 3 touchdowns and 290 yards in that ball game versus the Colts. So Allen, we know he's the number 1 quarterback off the board. He's got all around is Josh Allen, especially with his running ability as well. Number 4, Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. So this week, a potential shootout on Thursday night here between these two teams. Burrow, he's been great this season, one of the best quarterbacks and consistent quarterbacks in fantasy football. And he's pretty much been operating with Jamar Chase and Mike Gesicki as his 2 top options. With T. Higgins out once again this week, so Burrow in a shootout and a must-win game for Baltimore. I think he goes out there and has a big performance. Number 5, Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. So Jaden Daniels, what a season it's been for him this year. But this week, definitely a tougher matchup versus a good defense, led by T.J. Watt, Casey Hayward, and obviously Minka Fitzpatrick in the secondary. But Daniels, he's going to get his running yards on the ground. He's got a good IQ. We don't turn the football over much. But I just think this week up off a little bit. But every week he's a top 5 option. Number 6, Sam Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings. So 3 weeks in a row, 20 or more fantasy points for Sam Darnold. So this week a great matchup at the Jacksonville Jaguars where they can't stop anyone. And when you got a great wide receiver like Justin Jefferson, one of the best, if not the best receiver in all pro football, it's going to make the whole game easier. And now with TJ Hawkinson back in the lineup, even though he's on a snap count, that adds another good dimension to this offense. So with all those things coming together and this Viking team playing well, Sam Darnold's a great option this week. Number 7, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. So a good matchup this week here for Brock Purdy. I know the Niners, they were banged up going into the bye. We know Ayuk's out for the season, but Christian McCaffrey returning to this game. Even if he's in there 15, 18 touches a game and catches a couple passes out of the backfield, it's going to make an impact. And we know this Tampa Bay secondary can't stop anyone. So with Kittle having a big year and Deebo Samuel more healthy than he's been all season long going into this game, I like it for Purdy this week. Number 8, Kirk Cousins of the Atlanta Falcons. So Cousins in the offense, they're really getting things going over the last few weeks. First place right now in the NFC South is this Atlanta Falcon team, and a great matchup with the New Orleans Saints, a team they went up and down the field against early in the season. Now with Lattimore traded away the Commanders, that's another good defensive player Cousins in this offense about. So Drake London, we'll see if he plays in this game. I believe he will. And guys like Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, Ray McCloud have played well, and Bijan Robinson, one of the better receiving backs out of the backfield. So like I said, Cousins has been getting healthy over the last few weeks. This offense is starting to get things going, and this week in New Orleans, I like him as a top 10 option. Number 9, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Patrick Mahomes, last week it was a big ball game for him. I know it was a weak Tampa Bay Buck defense coming into Arrowhead, and this week Denver Broncos coming to town, one of the better defenses in the league. But we did see last week, obviously, Baltimore go out there and win easily 41-10 in that ball game. But Patrick Mahomes with Hopkins, they had a good rapport in that second game together. Hopkins found the end zone twice. Travis Kelce had a nice ball game. And then you got other guys like Xavier Worthy, McCole Hardman with some speed on the outside. So this offense with Hopkins, Kelce, and Kareem Hunt in the backfield, it's starting to form and get better as the weeks have gone on. So this week, I think Mahomes, even in a tougher matchup versus a team that's familiar with him in the AFC West, goes out there and has a good game. Number 10, Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we know he's down Mike Evans. We know Chris Godwin is out for the season. But where K. Dotton is the number 1 target in the passing game, Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan if he plays, and Trey Palmer, Mayfield's still going out there and putting up some numbers. So this week, a better matchup on paper for Mayfield than it was last. I know Kansas City last week was a tough matchup, but still went in there, played good football, forced overtime, but they fell short. Obviously, in San Francisco, they've had their lapses in the secondary this season. So I think Baker, with his gunslinger mentality, could have a decent ball game. Number 11, Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. So when you got Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua back in the lineup over the last couple weeks, it's going to make things easier. So Puka Nacua, I know he got tossed last week, but Demarcus Robinson once again emerging as that nice number 3 option in the passing game for Matthew Stafford and this Ram team. And this week, a great matchup on Monday Night Football versus a weak secondary of the Miami Dolphins. So I expect high scoring in this ball game, and I think Stafford once again goes out there and puts up numbers. Number 12, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. So Goff, one of the more accurate quarterbacks we've seen in a while, and his completion percentage is out of control as well. So Goff, he's got great weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jimmy Gibbs, David Montgomery out of the backfield, Sam Laporta at the tight end position. We'll see if Jameson Williams is going to play in this game as well. And this week, it's a potential high-scoring game between these two teams as well at the Houston Texans, where their defense the last couple weeks has been leaky. We saw Aaron Rodgers and the Jets go up and down the field versus them last week. So Jared Goff, with great weapons, great completion rate, and just not turning the football over weekly, he's a top 12 option for me. 13, CJ Stroud, same game of the Houston Texans. So Stroud, he's definitely struggled the last few weeks, and rightfully so, though. When you're out your top 2 weapons, he's been for multiple weeks, with Stephon Diggs out for the year, torn ACL. Nico Collins, he missed 4 games with the hamstring. We'll see if he comes back in this one. And this week versus a defense that's been getting better as the weeks go on. Even though Hutchinson is out for the regular season, I think CJ Stroud, with Collins back, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz in this offense, could get back to what he was doing last season and put up numbers. But right now, like I said, his numbers have been dropped off over the last couple of weeks, his Stroud. But if Collins is back, we'll see him boost up the rankings. 14, Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. So Bo Nix, he just finds a way to get fantasy points. Now 3 games in a row, 15 or more fantasy points for Bo Nix. And a few weeks ago, a big game versus the Carolina Panthers, over 30 fantasy points. This week, I know, tough matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs. But the thing with Bo Nix, he's getting a lot of rushing yards on the ground, where he's good for 3 to 7 points weekly running the football. So this is a game where Denver's going to be trailing most likely early and often. Bo Nix is going to use his legs to get some yards in this game and use his arm, where Cortland Sutton's broke out over the last couple weeks. So this week, I think Bo Nix, a lot of people said I was too low on him. I think at 14 in a tough matchup at Kansas City is right where he's got to be. 15, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. So this week, not a great matchup with the Jets coming to town. And Kyler Murray, it's been one good game, one bad game. And to be honest, it seems like it depends on what Marvin Harrison is doing in this offense for him to have the big games. So Harrison, when he's had down games, Murray's numbers haven't been that great. And last week, like I said, in a blowout victory versus the Bears, the numbers weren't great. And this week in a tougher matchup versus a Jet defense that's pretty stout, I don't think the numbers will be that great. But the thing with Kyler Murray, the running ability and the rushing yard always keeps him up there. Because in terms of being a pocket passer and a quarterback that could get the job done that way, he's not done it. But with his running ability and making plays out of the pocket, that's where the value is. With Murray, 16, Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets staying in the same game. So Rodgers with 2 great weapons, Garrett Wilson, old friend Davante Adams, coming in a deal a few weeks ago from the Raiders, and they found the end zone last week. So this week, a good matchup at Arizona. Secondary isn't all that great. But the thing with Rodgers, he is turning the football over at an alarming rate for him, obviously. And also, he's not going to get rushing yards as Aaron Rodgers, where a lot of these quarterbacks, they're going to get 3 to 5 points weekly running the football and have a little bit better of an offensive line protecting them. But this week, I think Aaron Rodgers could be a decent option. 17, Tua of the Miami Dolphins. So Tua 2 games back, I thought he's looked well. The problem has been the defense for this Dolphin team. So Tyreek Hill, he's had some decent games, nothing eye-popping out of the box score for him so far with Tua back in the lineup. Jalen Waddle hasn't done much, but Devon Achane in the passing game has added even more for this Miami Dolphin team. So this week in a potential high-scoring game with both these teams going up and down the field at the Rams on Monday night, I think Tua could be a back-end option and a great start in 2 quarterback leagues. 18, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. So this offense is starting to get things going, and Herbert's getting more comfortable with his new weapons. Ladd McConkey this season. I know Quentin Johnson was there last year but didn't play much and was banged up. And also with Will Disley at the tight end position and Dobbins out of the backfield. So this week, it's not a great matchup on paper versus Tennessee, even though I know this Titan defense hasn't traveled well this season, especially in week 7 and 8, where they got the doors blown off the Buffalo Bills, and then 52-14 losing at the Lions. But like I said, Herbert, his ceiling at times isn't that high. And this week in this matchup, I don't think he's a better option than the quarterbacks I have ahead of him in this ranking this week. Number 19, Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. So a good matchup on paper versus Carolina Panthers, Munich, Germany ball game. And Daniel Jones last week put up fantasy points, but obviously this Giant team don't really believe in Daniel Jones, that he could be their franchise quarterback going forward. There was talk that possibly he could be benched coming into the week. Well, right now, he's going to start this ball game, and they do got good weapons. I like Malik Nabers. He's definitely emerged as the number one wide receiver for a team in his rookie season so far. Wan'Dale Robinson is an underneath option in the passing game, and yard after catch player with speed's not bad. Theo Johnson, a decent tight end, starting to get things going in his rookie, and Tyrone Tracy, a rookie in the backfield. So this Giant offense is a good nucleus. But Daniel Jones, he's just not hitting his receivers. And I think the thing with him is he's holding on to the football long. Offensive line isn't great, and he's looking to run way too much. So this week, I have him in 19 and the 20th and final quarterback rankings. Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. So a few weeks ago, he was down in my rankings, and people thought it was too low with Caleb Williams. But the last 2 weeks after the bye week, he's gone out there, and he hasn't done much. DJ Moore hasn't done anything as well. 3 games in a row, less than double-digit fantasy points. Keenan Allen, it's been a bust of a trade for them so far this season, with injuries, decline, and not getting things going. And Cole Kmet, it's been a couple good games, and then games he disappears, and he has goose eggs like he did last week. And Rome Odunze, he was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft as well, and he's only had 2 big games, and the rest non-existent. So with all those factors, and the New England Patriot defense, who I know they're not that great, but over the last few seasons versus rookie quarterbacks, they've actually been better, even though those were coached by Bill Belichick. So that's a top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking for week 10 of the fantasy football season.